Hello again. Welcome to Watch Buys. My name's Dino, and you're probably wondering what the hell is going on, where the heck I've been, and what this video is. Well, I've been busy. A lot of big changes in my life. A lot of big changes in me personally, job-wise and everything. So it's been a pretty interesting 8 months-ish since my last video. But I thought I'd do this. I actually decided to try and video. I do a lot of these now. I do mainly servicing and work on Accutron, specifically 214s, 218s, 219s. And this is a 214 from one of my own watches that stopped working. Well, it stopped taping good times. So I thought I'd try to actually record me servicing it and see if anybody liked it. So you have to forgive camera angles and the lack of sound and the haphazard editing because still getting to grips with everything. But yeah, so we've got the movement out of the case. Again, my cameras won't focus. You'll see that a lot. I have no idea why. But basically taking that, what I just took off was this movement strap, and now we're trying to take off the dial feet. The dials on these are held to the movement with two screws that are in the top of the, well, from the back of the case. They look like little cylinders. Wonderful shot there, fantastic focusing. And trying to get these off. These are new screwdrivers that I just bought. These are Hertex minis that I feel are better for my hands, but they were bloody expensive. But they're really, really good. Anyway, now I'm going to try and get these little tiny cylinders that hold the dial on out. And it's proving pretty difficult, so I'm going to try and screwing it again. Sometimes they snug up again. And if it was in focus, you could probably see it. Now I'm getting frustrated, and I'm going to do my usual method of turning the movement over and hoping it drops out, which it does. And there it is. That little tiny cylinder is one of the, what they call a dial nut. And there's the dial in hands from this movement that I've had for a while that was running just fine, and decided to start losing a lot of time, so I figured it was probably time for a service. Now you have to forgive me for being away for a long time while I try and get this the hands off here. As I said, it's been a rough couple of months, or rough 6 months, but I'm going to try and start uploading them more. I think to find that it won't be as long. I think I'm going to be doing more watch servicing. I've gotten into more servicing and restoration over the past 6 months, 8 months, than actually reviewing them. There's a whole backstory about that I might get into in a little while. You might have seen the previous video about what happened when I got ripped off by a couple of companies. Unfortunately, that ended up with me losing a lot of money. So I've just kind of shied away from that. I don't want to do that anymore. I've never made any money from this. I'm not monetized, but maybe we can in the future. Anyway, got the hands off. They came off quite stiffly, and I'm starting to wonder if that is an issue. Wish I kept the audio in because I start humming and ahhing to myself. Well, maybe with the Canon pinions tight, but when you take the hands off these, if you move that second hand backwards more than a second or so, you're going to wreck what's called the index wheel, which drives the whole movement. And those index wheels, they're 2.4 millimeters in diameter, and they have 360 teeth on them, and they're very, very expensive and very hard to get. So I really didn't want to do that. Good job of getting you'll find that my fingers and thumbs and head are in the way a lot of this. I'm normally extremely close when I'm working on a movement, like chin on the table, like eyes maybe 3 or 4 inches away from it. And I couldn't obviously do it this way because the cameras were in the way, so I had to try and learn how to do this, and it's very, very difficult. Props off to everybody like, Wristwatch Revival, Marshall, and Naked Watchmaker, and Weekend Watch Repair, and all the really good guys that I watch that do this constantly. I don't know how they do it. I learned how to do these from a friend of mine that I bought my first Space View from last Christmas. And we became friends, and he became my mentor for these and taught me how to do them. And they're definitely very, very challenging. Here I'm just putting it under a microscope that one of my customers gave me. Excuse the bad quality here. And just pointing out that's the tension screw, and this is what's called the safety bridge. That has to come off in order for us to see the fingers. We need to see the fingers, and there are two. There's one called the pawl finger, which acts like a one-way ratchet. Stops the index wheel moving backwards. And the other one is attached to that tuning fork, and that's called the index finger. And that's the one that actually pushes it around. So I'm trying to take this off, and there's something going on with it, and I can't quite figure out what's going on. So back under the microscope it goes. Okay. So yeah, I spent the winter learning how to do these, and I invested a lot of money in the tools. Where mechanical watches are fairly straightforward. Once you know one, you pretty much know them all, especially Swiss movements. Then these take a lot of specialized equipment and a lot of specialized knowledge, and there's very few people in the world that know how to do these properly. And let me be clear, I am a tinkerer that gets lucky occasionally. I am no way a watchmaker, but I just happen to be able to do it well enough that sometimes it works for other people. Here I'm just going to take a look under the microscope again, one of my microscopes, and check the fingers. Now you can't really see them very clearly, but there are two little lines there with red jewels at the end of them. The top one is the pawl finger, that's the one-way ratchet, and the bottom one is connected to the I'm trying to adjust the light here so you can actually see it, to the tuning fork arm there that's going to push that around. And those two little tiny jewels at the end, they push that wheel counterclockwise, or one pushes it and the other one stops it from going backwards, that push around the rest of the train. And one of the things you have to learn, and it is very, very challenging, is what's called phasing, where you have to set the distance relative to the teeth between those two jewels. And I have a specialized microscope to do that I got off eBay, but it's still incredibly hard. So we're actually going to back off this screw here that you can't see because I had the depth of field set wrong, or the focal point set wrong. And we're going to move that index finger, the pawl jewel, away from the wheel as far as it can go, and then we're going to lock it into place. That way, when I go to clean it, it won't touch the wheel. And here I'm moving a tiny little thing called the index guard, which is like basically a circular piece of metal that sits over the two fingers that supposedly stops them from moving too far under a shock, and it'll put them back onto the wheel when it's moving. Yeah, that doesn't always work, and that's why on the subsequent revisions of this movement, which are the 218, the 219, the 2200, 2300, they completely got rid of that system. What they did is they just made the fingers way, way shorter, and then they're not susceptible to shock, which fixed the problem. So this is the dial side, and on the space view, this is the side you see all the time through the crystal. This is the setting wheel spring that pushes a tiny little setting wheel down and keeps it down, and that is the minute wheel spring. And here is the minute wheel going out. If it will come out. There it goes. I'm just expecting each one of them as they go, and this is the setting wheel. This is what gets pushed outwards from the crown, and actually pushed inwards from the crown, and engages that minute wheel, which engages the gear on the bottom of the cannon pinion there to set the time. And that cannon pinion sits on top of a multi-way clutch that allows the movement to still run and be pushed around while you set the time. Early versions of this watch didn't allow that, and if you tried setting the time backwards, you destroyed the entire movement. So that was a pretty clever innovation. But that part is a gigantic pain to service. And this is what's known as also the safety bridge. This stops the fork from coming upwards or forwards towards me from the movement and bending. Kind of superfluous in later movements. Back onto the case back side we go, and I'm just looking at the next part we got to do, which is that center chaton there, but my attention is drawn to the second pinion that's coming up through the chaton, that's coming up through the cannon pinion, and it looks bent to me. And I'm wondering if that's what's causing drag on the movement and if losing time. So, not 100% sure what's going on there. So back under the microscope it goes, unfortunately. Excuse my wife sneezing in the background. It doesn't, I don't have any footage of that. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. It's a cheaper Chinese microscope. I'm hoping to get a better one at some point, but not right now. So it looks okay. Now I'm going to switch tweezers to the only thing I've got that can take a canyon pinion off, and these are tweezers that I shaped to be able to do it. I bought them from Harbor Freight and then I shaped them, and it generally works. I don't have a canyon pinion removal tool yet. I can't afford one. Hopefully I'll be able to get one soon. Again, I'm checking the center seconds to see if it bends, and it looks okay. We'll check it under the microscope later. Now, the next part of cleaning these movements, below actually tell you not to take the train bridge off, which is that train bridge plate, that's that center plate there. All they tell you to do, if you're going to put this through the cleaning machine, or which I don't have, I have an ultrasonic, is to remove the chaton that holds the center sweep pinion into the train of wheels, because this entire train, there's actually two sides of it, and it's all driven through the center seconds. I'll include a link to a really good page that explains it. So this is a critical part of the movement. If this is worn in any way, wonderful focusing there, thank you, cell phone, or the chaton is damaged, or it's not sitting right, then the movement will do all kinds of weird things, and my skills are leaving me because I can't pick up a simple screw. It's very, very, once you're used to being so close to the movement, being as far away as I am right now, it's very difficult. You can quite just about see the Hugo t-shirt I'm wearing that I bought from Urban Gentry. I love that shirt. I love Urban Gentry. He's awesome. Shout out to Stanley. So out comes the center picking. Well, it will do when we get it out. As it's that tiny, and I've got a magnifier on because I'm normally really, really close. It's not helping, but I'm going to try and get this. There it is. And I drop it. Yep, good job. And drop it again. This time I get it out. And I take it, put it on the floor, and I want to check it. I want to see if it's bent. So we're going to look over it under the microscope, and this thing is a manual focus. And that looks okay. There's a little washer you can see on the left-hand side underneath the pinion there, or the gear. That little washer is critical. If that's damaged in any way, then the whole thing is no good. You can swap them between them, like if you've got a damaged one that's got a gold washer. If you're very steady, I've done it before, you can take it off with a high-powered microscope, binocular microscope, and put it onto another one, but it's a job. But it will save you money because those things are expensive. That tiny seconds pinion is probably $50 now or more. So now we're free and clear pretty much to take off the fork and the coil. Going by the Bulova manual, which I have a physical copy of, and doing lots of studying and lots of practice. There's an order of doing things, and then there's an order of doing things that actually works. The way I do it and the way I was taught is slightly different to the manual, but it works every time. You can service these what I call down to the wheels, where you actually remove the train, complete train, including the index wheel. But that's generally, even below say, that's generally only needed if the movement is doing extraordinary things. If it just needs a clean, like in this situation, all you need to do is remove the coil and the fork here. What I've removed the four, and there's one more jewel that we have to remove that holds the bottom pivots for the index wheel and the second wheel, and then we can put it in through the ultrasonic and it cleans it just fine, which makes it really, really fast. But again, the tricky situation with these comes from when you need to phase it, and the hardware that you need, the special meter and the knowledge and the software with a special timer, because mechanical timers won't work with these. These are tuning forks. There's no balance going backwards and forwards for it to hear the clicks. There's a special timer you need that is not cheap. I got the software one. There is a hardware one that's even more expensive, but even mine was $600 and something. There's two of the screws holding down the left side of the coil, what's called the cell coil. There's two sides to these coils. The left side with those bars running across is what connects to the battery, and they call that the cell side. And this is the component side, and they're joined together with these wires in the middle. And when these die, they die pretty spectacularly. And there's 3 coils in each one of those little windings at the top. There's 2 on the left and 1 on the right. And they serve to energize and de-energize and move the tuning fork in and out. through magnetism and generating a magnetic field. The third coil is a sensing coil, which adjusts how much current goes into them. It's a fantastic, incredible circuit. Remember, this movement was first developed in 1957, I believe. It didn't make it to market till the early 60s, 62, 63. But this is a good 10 years before quartz, or 8 years before quartz. And this was so good that they used them in aircraft and space missions. And these movements and the innovations that Bulova made in the 50s and 60s are why we made it into space. And why the Blackbird could fly as high as it could. They were absolutely incredible. And in fact, they're still running. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them are still running. Unfortunately, things like coils and forks are starting to run out. There was a gentleman in Australia, Rob, who was able to rewind these. Each one of those coils holds about 90, I believe it's 90 meters of wire that is 0.015 millimeters thick. So 15 millimeters? No, it's thin. It's like a tenth of thickness of a human hair. And there's 90 meters in each coil. It has to be a very specific. When Citizen bought Bulova, the rumor has it that there was one man that knew how to put those little jewels at the end of the index fingers, and there was one machine that could wind these coils, and Citizen destroyed the machinery that used to make these when they bought them. So they will never be made again. Apparently someone figured it out and made a machine that could rewind these coils, but they've kind of disappeared. So maybe the Citizen Mafia got them, or they got, more than likely they got sent a cease and desist and couldn't do anything with it, which is a shame, because then these have a finite life now. Those components you can see on the left hand side there, that top one is a resistor. I believe it's a 5K resistor, I believe. There is a tiny cap underneath it, which is 220 microfarads, I believe. And then there's a tiny, one of the very first transistors that were made for Bulova by an Australian company. I did some research that found that they were originally made for ham radio sets. So one of the first germanium transistors. You can replace them with modern components, and I do have a board that I've made that works, that can power these with modern components. I've just got to get it to the point where I can actually fit it into that little space there. But it does work. One of these days I'll make a video about it when it's ready to be released. So that at least that way it'd be an easy way to replace those components when they fail, because they do fail. So anyway, I've got all the screws out when I've been talking. I've lifted the fork up into the service position. You can't quite see the finger there, but it's on that left-hand side, and it is very, very fragile. You blow on that wrong, it will bend and you are done. They can be bent back, but they are very, very difficult to do so. It's thinner, or just as thin as a hairspring. It's basically made of the same material as a watch hairspring, and they are long enough and straight enough to be very, very easily bent. That is the coil plate, or the lead plate as they call it, and that holds the 3 cables, or sometimes 2, depending on which revision of this watch you have, that hold those in. The early versions didn't have that. So here's the top of the movement, and now we have the unenvious task of trying to get this whole assembly out of the watch without bending or breaking or touching that finger. That's me doing some claps. Just make sure everything's synced up again. So here we go. Good old hand in the way. Well done there. Hopefully I switched to a different camera. I'm not sure if I can or not. I don't think my other camera was working. If I can, I will. I will try in a minute. But so now I'm prying up with a bit of pegwood and trying to get these coil sides out of the movement, and they're in so tight that it's lifting the movement out of the movement holder. And that is an official Bulova 214 movement holder from the 60s. Again, I've got a modern version of that being made, but my 3D printer bit the dust. I need a new one, but with the current tariffs, they're just ridiculously expensive. So trying to get this one out, and it's just not budging. Making sure that the coil is free there, that there's not anything stopping it, and there's nothing wedged, which can happen. And if there's any metal parts in there, it can stop it running. and then it kind of, if I remember rightly, it releases here, right there. It kind of released. It was just wedged in there, I think, just by some dirt. And then I see, oh yeah, got it, and now it comes. And there's that really tiny finger you can see in the top middle fork. That's the finger. And now we can slide off the coil. Good focusing job, well done, cell phone. And get this stuff ready for cleaning. There goes the fork. It goes into its own compartment because those are very powerful magnets. And now we're going to try and, oh, I know I'm going to drop it. And we're going to straighten this out with the coils so they don't touch. And we're going to put that to the side, ready for it. The only way you can clean those is with a bit of Rodigo and maybe some pegwood. And now we just have the bare movement plate with that center brass wheel, which is the fourth wheel, I think. Yeah. I always get confused with on the clutch. Now I'm removing what I affectionately like to call the booby jewel. It's a horrible name for it, and I apologize to any ladies watching, but you'll see why I call it that when I lift it up. It's actually called the lower plate jewel, and that holds the jewels for the index wheel and the second wheel. And as it comes up, you'll see, you don't quite see why it is. Maybe you'll see it when he comes back, but it's two little jewels held in what looks like a lady's bra. And that has to be cleaned separately. Now we're flipping it back over to the other side, and I'm checking to make sure that the pivots are still in there, and we're okay to put this in the clean machine. Here I'm tightening. That's the tightening screw for the pawn, and here I'm tightening the screw that holds the index guard, and seeing it's a bit loose. What can happen, especially in an ultrasonic, is if you put it into an ultrasonic with that loose, it will drop down or so kind of rotate round clockwise and hit the pull finger and bend it. But it is a gigantic pain in the rear to take it out and put it back in and get it right. I mean, it has to sit perfectly to be able, there's a tiny slot in it and then a circle cut out of it, and it has to sit perfectly over both those fingers at the same time without touching them. And I've spent 5 hours trying to adjust one. So I leave them in now and I just tighten it to make sure that it doesn't move. Now I'm just checking everything's good to go in the clean machine, and I start noticing, you see that stuff there on the plate there? That is corrosion caused by the original mercury battery. So that's mercury, or some kind of acid that's leaked out of the battery over time. These run now on modern batteries. You can either put an Accutron in them, which is a modern battery with a two-way diode to drop the voltage. These watches are incredibly susceptible to different voltages. The original batteries were 1.33 volts. Modern equivalents are 1.55 volts, which is another challenge. If you don't know how to phase these correctly for the increased voltage, they will run really, really fast, about 20% fast, no matter what you do. There is a way to adjust them for it, but it's something you have to learn, and I've destroyed many movements learning it, but thankfully I know how to do it now, and I've made my own variable power supply system. I can phase these really well, but back when I first started it was very difficult. Now it looks like we're almost ready to put everything in cleaning, so we're going to grab my little baskets and I'm going to start putting all the parts in there. And while I do this, while we're doing the cleaning section, this traditionally, when other people make these videos, is when they start talking about how they would like to thank everybody, and I would like to thank everybody that stuck around. Even though I've dropped about 50% of my subscribers over the 8 months I haven't been uploading, a lot of you are still here, and I'm hoping a lot of you are watching this. Even if it's not something that you enjoy, and you're here for more reviews, I might do some in the future, but it's not going to be anything that will be, like I said before in my video, I'm not going to be held accountable to any company anymore, because that created a whole dynamic that I never ever want to repeat and cost me a ridiculous amount of money. So funny enough, one of the companies in fact must have forgotten who I was and reached out to me again about 3 weeks ago thinking I would snap up their offer. Yeah, that didn't work. Yeah, so I won't be doing any reviews in the way I used to do them. Like I said, you can go back and watch the other video for a bit more about what happened there. But I won't be held accountable to any company. Yes, that means that nobody will work with me, and I'm okay with that. I've been doing a lot of this lately. I've got rid of a lot of my watches that I didn't wear, and I've been wearing Accutrons pretty much exclusively for the past like 8 months, and I love these things now. So I know I've been supplementing my income and with fixing these and selling them on eBay and doing a few services for other people. I've only done 2 so far, but everybody's been really happy. So here we just got to go across. We're just going to check out this fork, and what's that I see? There's the reason why this watch is running slow. You see that? You see that metal stuck to the fork? That is the reason why this watch is slow, and it was rubbing against that coil, and that was enough to slow the frequency down. So we need to get rid of that. Now that's magnetic, and the only way to get rid of that is a little trick I figured out, showed before. But first we're going to clean the jewel. But yes, I'm not going to be doing those reviews anymore. However, I'm not opposed to doing that, but I will not be doing it on anything I have to pay for. Simple as that. If I buy a watch for myself, sure, I'll review it. But no, I'm not going to be doing ones where these companies trick me into buying watches, saying I'll get a discount or what have you, and promising me all this, and then basically I end up in a Ponzi scheme where I end up buying a bunch of worthless stock and getting screwed. So anyway, so we're going to give this a clean in. So that's naphtha. And I'm trying to clean the jewel. Now you can't touch it, you can't get anywhere near it, you can't use Rodico. The jewel is tiny. The story goes that there was one man, again, in Bolivar that used to make those jewels. And when he died, no one knew how to make them again. So there again, there's a finite supply of these forks and these paws, and when they run out, they run out. I've seen a couple of people successfully epoxy them back on. In fact, I had one that pinged off on me on a paw just yesterday, and that's the thing ruined. But lovely overexposed shot here, and a blank. Okay. Well, I got it out of the naphtha, and I'm trying to position it so where the other camera can see it, and I'm trying to adjust the other camera so it can see where it is. I'm off frame here. Again, I've never made one of these before, so you have to apologize. I hope this isn't too bad. So I'm playing the old camera game. I even have a piece of tape on my mat there to try and figure out where the center is, but it doesn't really work. So while it's drying, there it is. Not particularly in focus, and I think I go and I reach over and I put it back into focus. Maybe? Not too sure. Maybe I give up. Not 100% sure. But while that's drying, I'm going to take a look at this camera and see if I can get it in focus. But there's that little tiny finger that you can see sticking out from that post. And that post is cast into that fork. It's not welded or anything on. If that snaps, and it does, and they do, because that post is used to adjust the vertical position of that jewel relative to the index wheel. If that snaps, it's over. There's nothing you can do. Throw away the whole fork. Nothing you can do. I suppose if you had a laser welder, you might be able to laser weld it back on, but yeah, I don't have it. So this is my little trick to clean the inside of those cups. As we know, there's a bunch of metal and shavings in there that have gotten in there somehow, and that's what's causing the fork not to vibrate properly. So this is just regular rolled magic tape, Scotch tape. And good job I didn't catch it. I think I'll catch it in a second. But what I'm doing is I'm actually wrapping these around my brass tweezers. Don't forget there's 2 very powerful magnets inside those cups. And if you put anything made of steel in there, it's going to magnetize it. So these are brass tweezers. And I use my titanium ones later. I think they're titanium. They say they're titanium, but they were from AliExpress, so I doubt they are. But I use these first, and I wrap the tape inside out around the tweezers, and I use that as kind of like a sticky cone to reach inside those cups and pull out anything. And the amount of stuff I get out of there, I actually end up showing it in a little while, is incredible. They look clean from the naked eye, but under a microscope you can see, and you can even see that big chunk of metal there on my tape there, and I'm cleaning the outside of it, trying to get it out, and I finally get it out. I'm like, okay, good. You can see that big chunk of metal that's on the end, kind of. See there on the tip? That's that chunk of metal that was stuck in there that was making the fork not vibrate properly. So I got that out, and there's some red stuff. It's not rust, it's the wrong kind of red. And I'm looking at this going, what the heck is that? So now I'm wondering if there's something else going on. I make a very big blunder there. You're not supposed to hold those by the tine arm of the fork, because if you do, you can bend it and change the frequency. So that's a bad news. And there's how much crap it came out there just that one time. See that red dust on there? Not exactly sure what that is, but I find more of it. So now I figure, okay, I'm just gonna switch tweezers now, because those are a little big to get into those cups. So now I'm going to use my AliExpress titanium, in finger quotes, tweezers, which I don't think they're titanium. And there are, so I'm grabbing it in the tweezers upside down, so it's sticky side out. And I'm going to kind of wind it around those very thin tweezers, and very sharp tweezers that I've sharpened to make like a sticky cone. I get it wrong the first time, so I'm going to try it again. But it needs to be enough that it can reach inside, because those cones are pretty deep. It's stuck to my finger cup. And now we should be able to pull this fork back and reach inside a little better and get the rest of this chunk out of that fork, which will hopefully make it run way, way better. I'm trying to grab this with tweezers. Should grabbing it in the middle. There we go. Don't grab it from the outside. And now I'm going to run these, I'll support it with my other finger, and I'm going to run this around the inside of it very gently and just pick up. And you see it's picking up something that's red, like red dust. And while I'm doing this, I don't have the thing, I'm muttering to myself like, what is this stuff? It's not rust. There's something red. You can see it right there. It's gotten into this fork. And then I realize what it is. So it's the coating on the coil that's been rubbed off by contacting that piece of metal. So by some miracle, it didn't rub enough of that ceramic. What it is, I believe it's not ceramic. It's the kind of resin, that red coating they put on it to insulate that that wire, and it's been rubbing off via the coil, rubbing against the cup with that piece of metal, and slowly creating this red dust everywhere. And somehow it didn't rub off quite enough of it to short out that coil. Because if that coil shorts out, if there's enough of that coating gone that it shorts out against another one, it's done, it's gone. There's no way you can replace it. And this is how much is in there. It's on both sides. So you can see that big piece of metal there on the bottom, on the left-hand side. And there's another one on the right-hand side. So we got very lucky, and here it is under the microscope. There's that giant chunk of metal, and all that red dust is, I think they call it conformative coating, that's rubbed off over time and clogged up the cups, and that's why it wasn't working properly. Here's the second opinion. There's that washer I was telling you. It's made of plastic, so do not put these into alcohol or anything, or any kind of cleaning solution. You'll melt that plastic instantly, and then that chaton is completely useless. I have had watches where that is missing, and the movement will not run properly without it. So here's, or putting everything into the cleaning machine, shall I say. Because I did that fork stuff before, and I realized I hadn't put anything into the cleaning machine, so in it goes. And about 10 minutes later, out it comes, and all clean and dried. Actually, it's a little bit more than 10 minutes, because I put it through a wash cycle, 2 rinse cycles, and then a drying cycle. I have a food dehydrator that I use to dry these, and they come out very hot, so like, hot. And now we're going to set everything up to be reassembled. But the first thing, we have a lot of oiling to do. So now we've got these awesome little 3D printed parts boxes that my friend, my mentor, gets from a friend of his. They're 3D printed, and absolutely love them. Now we're unscrewing these little baskets and dumping out all the parts, and we're going to sort them out back into their respective little compartments. I always put everything in the same place so I know where it is. Another trick I learned, a bench procedure I guess I learned from a book. that you always put things in the same place, and you always have a clear space around your hands, because you'll forget where things are and you'll bump into them. So we're going to sort everything out here. I have a section for the dark side. I have a section for the keyless in finger quotes, because it's not really true keyless here. And I have a section for the center chaton. So I put those all in, and now we can start assembling. First we have to oil everything. I'm just doing a general inspection here. You can see how nicely the fluid is very expensive. It's LNR fine fluid, and it is not cheap, especially when you're using it with an ultrasonic, which you're not supposed to do. But I do have a watch cleaning machine that was gifted to me by my mentor. It's an LNR Master, which is a very similar model to what Wishwater's Revival Marshall has, but it's broken. The motor's burnt out. So I've spent the past couple of months, I have a 3D printed adapter that I've mounted to the armlet sensor with a motor and an Arduino that powers it, and I got it working last weekend. But it still needs a lot of refinement, but that's going to be coming in the next couple of months. Here I'm well, I tell you to do this in a certain way. You have to oil that center clutch, and I'm using HP 1300, which is about as close as the old oils as they used to have. There's two sides to it. One has a spring inside it that you have to depress to make sure the oil goes in it, and the other side does not. This is the side that has the spring, and I'm trying to decide here how I'm best going to do it with the camera and trying to hold this, because normally I just hold it. It's the easiest way, and I decide I'm going to use one of my cushions, and I'm going to prop it up, try to get it in view of the camera so you can kind of see what I'm doing. But you know, there's that wheel there, and you can't really see it, but I have to push that wheel down while at the same time getting an oiler in there with HP 1300. I can't touch the wheel, and I can't touch the little collar that is attached to. If I do, I have to put it through the cleaning machine. I have to start all over again. So I got a little nervous there, and I decided, okay, I'm going to use a bit of pegwood here. I've never done this on camera. I'm always under a microscope doing this. I've never done this manually. This is the first time I do it, and I actually managed to do it, even though the cell phone won't focus. So I push that wheel down ever so slightly, and then I slip that in there, touch, and the capillary action draws it in, and I get it first time. It normally takes me multiple goes and multiple cleanings to get that done. I guess you could just go for it. It's just a bit of HP 1300, but if that HP 1300 somehow makes its way to the index wheel, the entire movement won't work. So we're just going to go under now this microscope, and we're gonna oil the rest of the pivots that we won't have access to when everything else is back on. That middle one there, that is the bottom end of the third wheel. These are a piece of hair. I have cats with my wife, and their hair gets everywhere. It's maddening. You can see there's another fiber there, which I'll grab in a minute. So I've discovered the best way to oil these is to over oil them, and then clean up afterwards. So I kind of over oil these a little bit. There's a fiber there that's driving me nuts. I'll grab that in a second when I move over, and or maybe I don't. No, I do. I'll grab it there, and that little section there, that little shape looks like a heart. That's where the double jewel cap goes that covers those. And there's a top pivot here, or bottom pivot. This is the bottom side of the train, which is the dial side of the movement. I guess it could say bottom side, yeah. We're going to oil this one. Okay, forgive me for the lack of contrast here. We're going to oil that one. And then we're going to oil this pivot as well here, which we won't have access to afterwards. And you've got to, that is at the bottom of a recess, and you have to kind of get the oiler down. I have an oiler that I've bent to like a 45-degree angle so I can get in there, because otherwise trying to do it vertically is almost impossible. I did these off camera. Those springs are, whoever invented those springs, I hope they're in hell right now. Those springs are worse than Seiko DiaShock springs. In fact, they're very, very similar. And I have to do those under my binocular microscope. There's no other way to do them. You know, they take forever to do. But I did take those capsules off, clean them off, oil the pivots, and put them back on. But that took a good hour to do. And there's no point using the footage. Well, I don't have any footage of that because my microscope, my binocular microscope, doesn't have a camera adaptation. It's a microscope from the 70s I got that used to be used in, I believe it was in a dentist. But I'm saving, or I'm trying to get the money together for a trinocular microscope. They're about $1,700, but trying to get together money together on. Now here's that jewel I was talking about, the heart-shaped jewel that I affectionately call the booby jewel. You can kind of see why I call it that. If it's offensive, I'm very sorry. And gonna try and get it the right way up, and we're gonna put it over the top of those two pivots and get it seated so it pushes the pivot down, it doesn't snap those pivot ends, and then we've got to use the tiniest screw in the entire movement. I wish I could show you how small this screw is. It is absolutely minute, and we've got to get it just over there and just drop it in so it falls down. At this point, I believe my cell phone had quit recording and I don't notice it. So unfortunately, this is the only camera angle I have for the rest of the video, I believe. So I apologize for that. I will figure out a way, if this proves popular, I will try and figure out a way to do it properly, but I can't buy any more equipment. But anyway, that jewel's in. And now we're just going to go along with reassembling the rest of the movement with my hand in the way. I think I just flipped the movement over to the dial side, and I did. So the next job is to put the coil back onto the fork, and then slip the coil and the fork as one unit back into the movement, and then screw it down and pivot that finger so it falls back onto the jewel perfectly. And then that is an art in itself. If you get it wrong, that finger bends and you're done. So this is the masters, they make it look so easy, and if you get it right, it's not a big deal, but it can be incredibly difficult. So I assemble them on the bench, I lift it up and I put it on top of the movement, and with hands in the way so you can't see it, so apologies for that. Oh look, I already did it. Oh well, I gotta keep some secrets of how I do stuff, right? But that's basically how it falls into place. And if you don't get that right, you bend that pivot, and or you bend that fork pull, and you're done. So these are 4. Apparently, I've lost my scale. Again, I'm very far away, so I'm having difficulty finding the holes. As proven here, to screw down this coil. There it goes again. At least I'm getting better with that as the months go by, that I don't hold things as tightly now as they fly across the room. Although you would be forgiven to think that I'm an absolute idiot for how many times I can't get the screw in. All I can say is I was nervous, I knew I was on camera, I was also a lot further away than I normally am. Oh, there it goes again. Now at this point I'm getting frustrated, so I'm not doing the best. Eventually we get it. I don't know if I'll leave this in or not. 4th time, 5th time, I missed it. Now I'm getting mad, so I'm going to switch tweezers, use my brass ones, which I should have done in the first place, because why didn't I still drop it? But again, it's better to drop something that goes straight down and for it to ping across the room. 4th time, 5th time, it's like the 8th time I've missed it. And this is one screw, and this is how nervous I am. 9th time, nope. Nope, still not got it. Now it's trapped between the coil and the plate. So now I say screw it, and I put my face right up close where it should be, hence why you can't see anything. And I'm probably going to edit this bit out because it's completely pointless. But there we go, I finally got it. I eventually gave up trying to do it from like 3 feet away and got my eyes up real close where I'm supposed to, and got it first time. Let's screw this in. I believe this is, oh, good job, well done slipping off there. This is the red screwdriver. It was 1.4 millimeters. That's 1 out of 4 screws for the coil and 2 screws for the fork we've got to do on this side. And while I get faff around and get those in there, guess we'll talk about what is in store for this channel, myself, watches in general. And I'll be honest, I don't know. I had a lot of things set up that, well, not set up, that I was hoping to be able to do some interviews with people. That I did one with Mark from Long Island Watch that I had never published because I thought it was terrible, and apologies to Mark. he spent the time to talk to me, and it just didn't work. I tried editing it a bunch of times, it just didn't work. I didn't want to put anything out there that made anybody look bad. So least of all him, he was a fantastic guy. And maybe we can revisit that and do it again at some point. Same goes for Tristano, Urban Gentry. I still want to get together with him and talk about Bolivar, because I know he loves them, and his journey. So maybe I can do that. If anybody knows, I mean, he does follow me on socials. If you're watching this, Tristano, please get in contact. I've been trying to email you for ages. I don't even know if my email works, because sometimes I get emails, sometimes I don't. But I'm not sure. I did this because I felt like I wanted to see who was still on out there. I've spent so much money and so much time learning how to do this. I do post on Instagram, it's Watchwise on Instagram. I post what I've been doing and the restorations I've done for people, and I've gotten some that have come out beautifully. The latest one I did that I'm really, or two latest ones I did that I'm really proud of, are the Snorkel Deep Sea, the Devil Diver, the 666 Accutron, which just came out incredible. Unfortunately, I have to sell that watch to, of course, pay for everything. And it's breaking my heart to do so, because it's the best one I've seen of that watch. It's incredibly beautiful. Here I'm going to lift up the fork again, which you shouldn't do in the way I'm doing it, but you're supposed to push it from the other side, but I lift it up, and that's the position it sits in for setting. You'll see that little finger is sticking out on the left-hand side, and you've got to be really careful not to touch that when you're moving around the movement. Asking me how I know. I'm using a bit of pegwood here to push down the wires to get them to sit properly in the little groove there. But anyway, I would like to continue doing more watchmaking stuff. I really enjoy this. It was incredibly expensive to learn how to do it, and the equipment, and I'm not even half done with the equipment I need, that I want to get, like the proper watch cleaning machine. The one I'm working on is just a stopgap. Lapping machine and extra, it's just incredibly expensive, so I'll work my way to it. But I'm hoping you guys will stick around for the journey. Interested in doing viewers watches. I won't charge for it. All I ask is you pay for shipping and you pay for parts, but I will not be reaching out to anybody to do that or accepting anything that. So if you get someone saying, hey, it's Dino from Watchwise, I'm going to take a watch, it's not me. I will announce with a specific video how to do that, because there are so many scammers out there that take advantage of stuff like that. So don't do it yet. If you've got something you want me to fix or you'd like me to take a look at, wait. There will be a specific procedure for doing that that will eliminate most of the ways that people can get scammed like that. So these are two very, very tiny screws again that are very, very small, that hold that coil plate in, and I can't seem to get them to sit down. So I'm going to take them out again, and I'm going to adjust. I think I adjust the plate a little bit. I think I cut that bit out there. They weren't quite sitting, but anyway, we've got to get this plate in. The watch will work without it, obviously, but won't be complete. So this time I get it to sit properly. I think it dropped in, but again, my depth of field is wrong. And then I knock it out with my screwdriver, and now I'm getting frustrated again. Here we go again. I'm going to take it out again. This tiny little screw, the plate's going to move, because I'm very, very cognizant of that fork sticking up. And this is the only way to do it. There's no way to do this with that coil down, with that fork down. You have to do it with it sticking up. And so you can't go anywhere near that one tiny touch, and that is ruined. Again, ask me how I know. So I'm going to try again. I'm going to drop it in. Do I get it in this time? I'm not sure. I think I do. Excuse me. Roll that screwdriver out of the way. I think I get a different size screwdriver, and that does the trick. I was using too big of a screwdriver. And I'm going to get the other side, and I do the same thing there. So while I'm faffing around and you're wondering what the hell I'm even doing touching these movements, so yes, I will never ever assist anybody. I will figure out a way of doing it, or I know a way of doing it. I've just got to get it set up if the interest is there. If not, no big deal. I do have an eBay store. It's Watchwise on eBay. So if you're looking to buy one of these, please get in contact. And now we can move that down, and I've got the index set so it won't touch the wheel, and we should be good to go now to screw that fork down. There's 2 screws that hold it down. They can be put in any order, doesn't matter. In fact, this watch will work with 1 screw in there. I've had a couple of movements as there's only 1 screw holding it down. As long as it's the back one, the one that I'm screwing in now, it's just fine. If it's the forward one, then it doesn't tend to work properly. So what else was I going to say? Yeah, I want to collaborate with all the other YouTubers out there that do this kind of thing, especially ones that maybe want to get into Accutrons. I want to teach other people how to do this, and with that in mind, one of the reasons why I made this footage in the first place was because I want to make a course on how to do this properly with footage and everything. I just wanted to see how difficult it was, and spoiler alert, it's incredibly difficult to make it watchable. This is in nowhere near, there's nothing. This is just the footage. First try, I thought I'd throw it out there. Maybe I can get some advice on how to make it better. I mean, obviously being in focus would be a great thing. Putting on the shock bridge now for the fork. Again, a very, very tiny screw that's countersunk on one side, so it doesn't want to sit normally. And again, I'm right next to the magnet, so I'm using brass tweezers. You cannot use steel anywhere near these. You'll magnetize everything. Of course, this is one of the few movements where magnetism doesn't matter. My new screwdrivers are slipping everywhere because I haven't been able to flatten the blade enough to stop it, to get it to sit properly in slots yet. So I just bought these, like, I think the day before I did this movement. Now we're almost done, believe it or not. I'm going to put a tiny bit of HP 1300 where the setting wheel sits and the minute wheel sits. And then we have one more thing to do. I think. 2 more things to do, technically. And then we're almost done. So a little tiny bit of HG 1300 into the 2 cutouts where they sit, not really bushed or anything, it's just metal on metal, so they need a little bit of lubrication. And we're going to put the cannon pinion in first. That does not have any lubrication on it when it goes over the center post. If we put lubrication on it, it will slip too much and the time will fall behind. So that gets pushed down with the tweezers and snaps into place. And then I can put the, sometimes I do it in different order, but I should be putting the setting wheel in first. Yes, I do. Apologies for meows in the background. That's my cat. And the minute wheel goes in, so I can index it correctly between the cannon pinion. I'm adjusting the focus there. What I should be doing, I'm guessing, is setting up each shot individually and filming each one individually rather than just a continuous thing. But I learned that later. And now we've got to put the 2 springs in. And there is one that holds the minute wheel down, which is this one. They both go through the same pivot with the same screw. And this is the setting wheel spring that sits on top of it and again goes through the same wheel and holds that spring, that setting wheel in, actually out, believe it or not, because when you pull the crown out, it allows that wheel to drop into the place that it is right now and allows you to turn the hands. And I just dropped the screw right next to the fork. I'm going to fish that out, and it's the perfect size to sit in there with the head wedged. I finally get it out, thankfully. But I've done it before where I've got that in there to a certain point where I have to take it all apart to get it in there, but this time I managed to get it out. I'm going to try and get this through both springs and into the hole, and I do it the second time. Not bad. So we can tighten that down. I'm going to guess my screwdriver is going to slip all over the place. Yeah, I'm also using the wrong size. And I adjust that later. That's not sitting correctly. It needs to be dead center over that spring. And I'm just going to get my hand in the way when I adjust it, because I forget I'm on camera again. So I'm adjusting that spring, the top one, over the setting wheel to a dead center of its pivot, or its cutout, so it holds it down. So there we go, dead center. Checking that now visually. I'm going to flip it over to the other side and put the last piece on. Get my hand out of the way. Come on, get your hand out of the way. There we go. Now we've got to put the center seconds in, and we've got to put the chaton and the screws in. So I've cleaned the center seconds wheel up. It doesn't take any lubrication. I'm going to use my tweezers, and again, I'm not usually I do this under a microscope, but I managed to do it manually and drop it in, and now I've got to push that plastic spacer underneath the fourth wheel, but the pivot has got to, the pinion for the second wheel has got to sit under it. So I eventually give up trying to do it manually, go over to the microscope and do it the proper way, so I know it's sitting right. Because if the second pinion and the stem is sitting above that wheel, it can look like it's in there, and if you try and put the chaton on there and screw it down, it will just break it straight away. And those pinions are $50 each, if you can find them. They're not cheap. For that tiny little stem with a gear on it. Unbelievable, the price of some of this stuff. And that's why the price of these are going up. The 214s, the space views, even the conversion space views are getting more and more expensive. You used to pick them up for about $250. Now they're closer to $450, $500, with the factory ones reaching $750. The Space View Gs, the American and Swiss versions, are going for $1,300, $1,400 now, good ones. And they're just going to go up. So this is the chaton, which is a brass setting with a pivot in it, a jewel in it, and it's countersunk, and I've got to drop that in there. Again, I normally do this. I did do it, and it's got to go over the pivot and sit flat. And if it's held on either side with two screws that are very flat and very, very tiny, short threads. And it's very easy to cross thread them. In fact, Bulova, make 3 different sides of these screws because so many people were cross threading them and stripping out that plate. They made larger sizes so it could cut into the plate and reseat itself. So what I do is I give each one maybe a turn and a half, and then I will take it over to the microscope again, and I will make sure that that pivot is in that jewel exactly. Because, again, ask me how I know. If you tighten even one side of that down and it's not in exact, you'll feel the ping, and then you know you've got to spend $50 on eBay plus shipping to get another one. So now I know it's in there, and we're going to tighten these down and tighten one side. We can try and get it as even as we can. I'm actually counting the turns here, and I think they're pretty even, and I'm looking, and that looks good to me. Let's go take some pegwood, and I'm going to reset those little turning wheels there that look like teeth on a gear. They're not, they're regulators, and they regulate how fast or slow the tuning fork vibrates. So you can regulate the time on these. I'm just giving everything a quick check, and you can see my finger cuts. And we are done with that part of the installation. So now this is me working under my microscope. This now is the Model 700 test set that takes a battery and outputs a voltage that will power and measures the current that it's drawing, and that's kind of like the amplitude in microamperes that you would see on a mechanical watch. So you would say, okay, I've got 230 degrees of amplitude, that's good. Here we're measuring it in microamperes, and that's how much drain has been put on the how much current it's drawing, and you can see that little scale there, and I've got to get it right in the middle, and I nail it first try. You don't know how many times it took me to learn how to do that. I nail it first try. And now this is going to sit on this little puck that can read these tuning forks. It's connected to my computer and special software. So I'm just going to reorient my camera here, my old laptop, that's actually going to read this movement. I'm going to set it running even though my camera is way off. And it's going to read the tuning fork, do some math, and figure out if it's gaining or losing time. Bulova wants it to be losing 2 seconds a day dial up, which is about 0 dial down, which is what it currently is. And so right now it's counting. I normally leave these on my tuning on my grapher for 12 hours. And my first attempt, it didn't go well. Even though I nailed it on the first time, it was still losing way too much time. And that tool I just showed you there, that's what you use to bend that post that's on the tuning fork to adjust the tension that it puts on the index wheel. And once I got that nailed in, you can see the hertz there. It's 359.9989. That should be 360. So each 100th of a hertz there equates to about a tenth of a millisecond. And you'll see in the bottom there, it's division. It's losing about 400 milliseconds a day right now. So which equates, and there's a trace, the old vibrograph. It simulates a vibrograph trace. Right now that's losing, just knowing how that angle is, that's losing about 2 seconds a day, which is about exactly what we want. So I generally let these run for 12 hours. And after a bit of tweaking and some more regulation, again, this took many, many hours. So that's about it. Again, I hope you enjoyed this. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Let me know if you'd like to see more of these. It was interesting doing it. It was a lot of work. Obviously, I'd do it a lot differently next time. But please let me know what you thought of it. And leave a comment down below. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.